Okay, so here we are in our start of our little demo app that we're going to be building. I've done a little bit of preparatory work because most of it you are familiar with and I don't want to bore you. But just to recap on a couple of things, in the file pop-up menu, I've got a button called Exit now. I used to use Close, but if we use the word Exit, then Standard SysPro understands that it's event ID 60,000 and will close the app automatically for you, so you don't actually have to put any code in there. In previous apps, we've been trapping the button and doing a call out called Close App, which we don't have to do anymore. As with other apps, I've got a little bit of a help thing popping up here, and if you remember, what we used to do was catch the help button and do a show dialog call out. Well, now if we click on there, if we look a little bit further down here now, we see that we don't have to do any code. We just have to select the dialog that we actually want to display, and it will do it all automatically. So this is an example of the way that App Designer is evolving as we try to reduce the amount of code required to do the more trivial bits and pieces. So there we go from there. So if we have a look at the form, I've just got a single field in here, nothing special, it's just a form field there. And then I've got one button here, which will allow us to execute some of our code. So let's go and have a look at our script. So here we are in our script, relatively straightforward. You'll recognize the style. I like to put constants in here so that we're trapping the event ID of the toolbar, and then it makes the code a little bit easy to read lower down. At the moment, I'm not using anything on initialize event, but we will do shortly. And then on user event, we're trapping the toolbar event type. I'm looking for the toolbar press me button, and on there I've got a couple of local variables dimensioned. I'm then doing a get app parameter, so that call out will look for any parameters passed on the command line or the call to the app. And then if it's not a blank, then I'm actually popping it into the form field set value. So I'm actually moving the value into the form field. And if it is blank, then I'm just putting the word none. Very, very straightforward. So let's actually have a quick look at this. To run an app from here and give it a runtime parameter, we actually go here and say run application with parameter. Just saving our app for us. And if we just type in something like Andy in here and run. Okay, we can see our single field, and if I just do press me, it's picked up the runtime and bobbed it into the field as we would expect. So what I want to do now is move on and show you how we're going to be adding variables for the local variables or within app set variables, and also global variables. Okay, I'm back in our app that we're building, and I've added a few extra fields to our form. I think the simplest thing to do is actually just show you the VB script, and then the form will become self-explanatory. Good. So I've added a couple of constants just to make it easier for me to modify variable names and things. That constant there is variable name app designer variable, and this is global variable 1, and we'll see those shortly. So on the initialization event, I'm using this event to set some of the parameters for our little experiment. The first call out is set variable call out. Now this is important because this is the what this is saying is the VB script wants to set an application level variable, and its contents will be available for other runs of the VB script within the application. So if we press a button and fire an event, we can use set variable to save values so that when we press the button again, we can have a look at whatever that variable was. Now that's contrasted with this call out here, set global variable. And what this is saying is the VB script wants to set a variable at a system-wide level, which will be available by any customized pane or macro from any standard program that follows on from the running of this script. And when you think about it, that's a pretty powerful thing to be able to do. When you are thinking about using these variables, you do have to provide a name. Now, within an application, the variable name should really describe what it's being used for. But when you're looking at a global variable, you might like to consider building in things like the app name into the variable so that people can see where these variables are being used. And if you're a partner writing generic programs or things like that, you might want to build the partner ID in just in case somebody comes along later on and starts using similar names to yours and so on like that. So just be careful. And then the final thing I'm using here is just an example of how you can set the system-wide global variable. This is an old way of doing things. You'll find it in the variable section. We just expand that. You sound it down here. This is how it used to be done in the say the old days in the beginning, and really the four global variables wasn't enough anyway, so it was better to build it in this way. And then what I'm doing a little bit lower down here, we've looked at the runtime variables, is we use get variable, so that's getting the app level variable and putting it into a local VBScript variable and then using it to fill out the form fields. And then I'm using get global variable with the global variable name, pop it in the local VBScript variable, and then again pop it into some fields. And then I'm popping the system-wide, a couple of system-wides into the field. Very, very simple stuff. So let's save that and let's just get on with running the app to see what actually happens. Okay, so we'll just do this and we can see our runtime coming through. And now we can see our get variable and our global variables coming through. And there's the system-wide variables, just as an example. So we're seeing all the variables demonstrating here. One other thing I do want to flag with you, just as an aside, really, is the ability to pop more data into a form. And this is really in place of a tooltip. So in effect, you've got the caption for the field, you've got the data for the field, and then you've got a third element which could describe more. So it might be something like salesman. That might be the salesman name, but you might pop the salesman code in here as well. In this instance, I'm just putting the variable name in. Let me show you where that's done. Just nip into form design, pick one of the fields we're using it. And if we scroll down here, there is an option called Do Not Translate Tooltip. It's a little bit of an odd description, but notice the tooltip also says it's used to put the description in the caption. If you tick that, then if you use the call out here, I'll show you. And if you use form field set tooltip, if that property is set, it won't create a tooltip. It will insert it into the caption area there. So just a bit of a side bit. Okay, so what I want to do now is move on to add a few more bits and pieces for you to get a feel for what's going on. For the final part of our little app, I just wanted to show you how you get hold of setup options. So I've added a notepad control here, very, very simple. And let's just go and have a look at the VBScript. Nothing's changed, just a bit at the bottom here. So I mentioned a local VBScript variable. I'm using get setup option callout, and then which you will find in here in the common callouts. The key being the first three letters of the module. So in this instance, this is going to get the accounts receivable setup options and put the answer back into my local VBScript variable. I'm clearing out the notepad and then I'm replacing the text from the notepad. So you'll see all those in the notepad control down here. And they're all in there. So fairly straightforward, just simply issue the command, pop them in there, and that's the end of that. So let's run our little app, save it, and we'll might as well do this. In fact, what I'll do is I'll run it without the parameters just so you can see what it does. Okay, that's good. And we just press me here. So first things first, you can see that because I didn't put a runtime variable, my little statement has caught that. Nothing's changed there. And this is the XML that's come back from that get setup option. It's all the setup options for the accounts receivable. Obviously, in a VB script, you will load this into the DOM and maybe interrogate it or do some way of getting the setup options you are interested in. And every single module that Cispro has, you can get at the setup options in this manner. In fact, I just remind myself here and common callouts. Get setup options, and when you click on it, you see all the modules here, and it would automatically insert it if I selected one of those. So that's the end of our current little experiment showing you how the variables work, and we'll move on now and see how we can use these variables with other parts of Cispro.